When it comes to snare drums, are you the type of drummer that immediately swaps out whatever wires are on the drum and puts an aftermarket set? And do you believe that alternative snare wires can affect the sound of the drum in a way that could make the drum go from sounding pretty bland to really waking it up? Well, in this Snare Saturday video, I am going to put every snare wire that Canopus Drums makes for a 14-inch snare drum on the Ludwig Rocker Bronze snare drum. What was known as a more affordable option when it came out, this drum now has a cult following because of the great sound that it has and because it is pretty affordable, or at least it was affordable if you can still find one. For those who are unfamiliar with the channel, hi, welcome. My name is Nick Costa and I am a drummer from Philly, PA. And a recent theme with the Snare Saturday series is where I put various snare wires, like every one that's made by Canopus Drums, on different snare drums just to see if they do affect the sound. And with some of those earlier videos being more higher end drums like a Black Beauty or a Copperphonic, we've also been experimenting with some intermediate or entry level snare drums, aka more affordable options, just to see if the same snare wires are affecting each drum differently. So let's continue on with this trend with the Rocker Bronze. Now before we dive into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel. If you're unfamiliar with the Ludwig Rocker Bronze, this was a drum that was released in the late 90s to early 2000s when the sound of a bronze snare drum was becoming pretty popular. Now the Rocker series is a more affordable line from Ludwig, or at least it was during this era, and this shell is identified as a 5x14 welded bronze shell. Although if you put it next to the 5x14 Rocker steel, it does look like it's a little bit deeper, and it may be a 5.5x14. This drum is outfitted with 10 double-sided bow tie lugs, triple flange hoops on the top and the bottom, the generic throw-off and butt plate for the Rocker series of this era, and for this video, the drum is outfitted with a Remo Ambassador X coated head on the top, and an Ambassador snare side head on the bottom. Now the snare wires, I'm not too sure if they're the original from the Ludwig factory. I purchased this drum used about a year ago, and these were the wires that were on the drum when I bought it. Now, let's talk about the specs of all of the snare wires that are made by Canopus Drums that will be featured in this video. There are two lines, the Vintage Snare series and the Backbeat series. But I have that backwards. Backbeats are over here, and the Vintage series are over here. So there are three Vintage series wires. We have two 20-strand configurations here and here, and then a 16-strand configuration as well. The 20-strand configurations come in two variables. You have a dry version, which is recommended for wood drums, and a chrome-plated version, which is recommended for metal drums. At least that's what's posted on Canopus's website. Finally, there is a 16-strand model, which is just the dry version, because older snare wires, especially from the 60s, had a smaller strand count. Now these wires in particular were designed to replicate the snare wires of Slingerland and Ludwig from the 60s. Now moving on to the next series, you have the Backbeat series. Once again, the two standard configurations are 20 strands each. One is dry and the other is chrome plated. Once again, recommended the dry for the wood drums and chrome plated for metal drums. But if you are somebody who prefers a wider strand snare wire set, they also make it in a 30 strand here and a 42 strand as well. Fair warning, however, if you do prefer larger strand snare wires on your drum, just make sure that your snare drum has a wider snare bed. So if you put a wider set of snare wires on that drum and the bed isn't wide enough to hold them, you're gonna have a bunch of wires hanging over the edge and you're gonna get a lot of sympathetic buzz. In case you missed it, I was recently the guest on the Musician's Musician podcast with Nick Costa. And no, I'm not talking about me, Nick Costa. I'm talking about singer-songwriter Nick Costa from Los Angeles. And fun fact, there's more than two of us with the same name who are musicians. And being that he is a singer-songwriter slash guitar player and I'm a drummer, what better artist to talk about than Wolfgang Van Halen, the mastermind behind Mammoth WVH, or Mammoth. We talk about both my career and Nick's career, and just really dive into what it's like being a musician. So if you haven't seen it yet, you should check it out at the link in the description below. Now, just like all of the other Snare Saturday videos where I am comparing a bunch of wires on one drum, the process is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna play the drum in one tuning, and I'm going to transition from one set of snare wires to the next. I'll start out with the wires that were on the drum when I purchased it. And then I will transition over to the vintage wires. I will start out with the 20 strand configurations, the dry strand first, and then the chrome plated version. Then I'll switch over to the 16 strand model. After that, I'll move over to the Backbeat series. And again, I will start with the 20 strand configurations, the dry model first, and then the chrome plated model. After that, I will move over to the larger strands with the 30 and the 42 strand. So, enough of me talking, let's dive in. So now that you've had the chance to hear the Ludwig Rocker Bronze snare drum with 8 different snare wires on it, the set of wires that were on it when I purchased it, and the 7 wires from Canopus drums, could you hear a difference between all the different snare wires? Also, which one was your favorite? I would love to know, so leave it all in the comment section below. And if you have any other additional questions on any of the snare wires featured in the video, the gear that I am playing, or anything else, you can put that in the comment section as well, and I will try my best to answer. If you would like to get any of the snare wires from Canopus drums that are featured in this video for yourself, I've put affiliate links to each one in the description below. I also have a link to the snare wire belt, which are the straps that I am using to apply all the Canopus wires to the drum. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see how snare wires affect the sound of other snare drums, I've put links to those videos in the description below. Also, if you would like to hear this Ludwig Rocker Bronze through a broader tuning range, I've put a link to the older Snare Saturday video showcasing just this drum, also in the description below. And if you'd like to see what this Snare Saturday series is all about, the playlist is in the description below as well, and I'll also have it come up right here to make it a bit easier for you. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That not only makes it easier for others to find it, it is a free and easy way to support the channel. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video on Do Snare Wires Affect the Sound of a Ludwig Rocker Bronze Snare Drum? And until next time, see you later.